Al, Knicks Fan TV, welcome back to the show, man. What is the vibes?
Oh my God, Andrew, aka my guy, the 1-2 combo, back on Combos Court. Look at you, man, doing your damn thing on the NBA Report channel. I'm good, man. You've been killing it, man. Been tapping in. Love all the
Thank you.
shows that you've been dropping, man. How you been though?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I took a little vacation. Everything's good, man. Everything's good.
Yeah, you were living life, man, on the Bahamas. I saw. You're on your IG. You're doing your hoops out there, man. I'm a little jealous. You're out there in the sun. I'm out here, in Beantown, just having to go to the gym, just get to see, I guess, whatever nature and the concrete jungle offers me. But hey, I'm happy that you get to get a little R&R, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. We'll talk about Beantown a little bit later. But your team, the New York Knicks,
Yes, sir.
second year in a row, second round exit, but it feels like more of a success this season, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I'll say that it does because I don't like. I think depending on who you talk to and the fan base, like they could still say it wasn't a success because this team still had maybe in their eyes enough to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, especially going against an Indiana Pacers team that not known for their defense, but as we saw. Once they get hot, they are just one of the better shooting teams out there offensively. So I know that part of the fan base feels that the Knicks, even with all their injuries, they should have been able to make it to the second round. But look, I think it's success in the sense that it's the second year in a row that you go to the second round of the Eastern Conference, going into the playoffs. 3 out of the last 4 years, you made it to the postseason, which is awesome. And I think it's a success because you get to see, even with all the injuries that the Knicks had to, that the Knicks was sustained over this entire season, this team was still able to compete with their role players and obviously the emergence of Jalen Brunson. I said he was a superstar last year. By the way,
Mm.
he dropped 40 points against the Miami Heat in a closeout game for the Heat, right, in game 6. I was like, that's a superstar type of move to just go 40 against a defense that is stopping teams, but yet they couldn't figure out Brunson, but Brunson figured them out. And now we see him take it to another level where we know we had big shots from Dante, you had solid play from Josh Hart, but the way that he was able to perform against the Philadelphia 76ers and even during the Indiana Pacers series, it's a win in that respect where you see guys like Dante and Josh Hart level up and you can count on them for even more. And then Brunson just take it to another level in superstardom. So it's success as a season for the New York Knicks.
CP often talks about, shouts to CP, that it would turn into like a what if season. So my question to you is like, there are so many what ifs about this team, but what is the biggest what if for the New York Knicks this season?
Like one thing in particular, like outside of just saying, I can't just say all the injuries. Like, what if this team was fully healthy? Is
Yeah,
that what you're
I
looking
guess
for?
you might have to pick an injury, unfortunately, or if there's something else on your mind.
Well, I'm going to choose the one injury that
Injuries suck. Injuries just suck in basketball, right? Like, I mean,
they
I've dealt with
do.
mine. It's the worst.
It's the worst thing possible, man. And look, the biggest one to me is going to be Julius Randle. Um,
Mm.
just because I feel like OG, like I think that would probably be the second biggest what if, just because if he didn't get hurt during the Pacers series, you could say, all right, is that still enough, even without Randall, to go toe to toe with the Boston Celtics team? Because you think that maybe OG would be guarding Tatum, maybe Jalen Brown, uh, and then you figure out how does that all unfold between a Knicks and a Celtics, you know, Eastern Conference Finals matchup, even not having Julius. But I think for Julius, it's the biggest one for me because that's your second guy on this team. We all know it's Brunson's team, but Julius is just kind of that enigma as of right now because we know when Tiz first got here, not a great postseason against the Hawks. Last year, he dealt with an ankle injury before he got into the postseason against the Miami Heat. Then he re-aggravates it against against the Cavaliers in the first round in that closeout game in Game 5 against the Cavs. And so we didn't really get to see him perform at that level. And then we see this year, OG joins the team throughout January. You're starting to see the Knicks play at such a high level of basketball that we haven't seen from this team at all. And now it's like, well, what if we had Julius still healthy where, he's another playmaker, another rebounder on this team, another scorer. And just with that, I wonder what would this team look like in the postseason. And this was the best basketball he played even before the OG trade, because he finally figured out that this is a guy that he can get downhill and just punish players in the paint instead of just being this jump shooter that we've been seeing, especially last season, where he was taking some tough twos, some tough threes, these side steps, but he made it a lot easier this season. So for me, it's what would this team look like with Julius Randle fully healthy in the postseason?
There's a lot of talk about moving on from Julius. We even had a post on the NBA report with Kenyon, CP, and myself that it's getting shared a lot, bro. I think it's over
Yeah,
like
I see, man.
yeah,
I see.
yeah.
It's a very big topic.
I think it's like over 150K at this point. So people are interested in it. What are your thoughts? First of all, would you make that hypothetical trade if you were the Knicks? Second of all, do you think the Knicks should move off of Julius Randle?
I don't think the thing is, I don't think that they should move off of Julius just yet. I think that you got to
Just
run it.
yet. That's interesting. Just yet.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think because look,
So there's something in your mind saying maybe.
maybe because I think it's all going to be predicated on next season.
Mm.
He's going to be due for an extension at some point, and the team's got to have to make a decision, and he's going to have to show that he can produce in the postseason. Look, he has to stay healthy for one in the postseason, and then two, he has to be able to perform. Those are two big things that he has to show up and do. So that's why I say maybe, potentially, because if he does show up and he performs, and let's say the Knicks do, it's so hard to say, oh, well, they have to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals because every year is different, right? Every year is different in like how things unfold, injuries that occur in the postseason, as we saw this year. Look at the Pacers' run to the Eastern Conference Finals, not having Dame, Giannis, and Middleton to go through in the first round. Then the Knicks just getting tormented with injuries, and now you see them like even though they were for the most part healthy. I know that people are going to say, especially Pacer fans, we didn't have Mathurin, but Boston didn't have KP. Like still, it's like they still showed that they can make it to the ECF. There's something to build off of. But who knows if they would have been able to make it that far if you have Giannis and everybody else on that Bucks team fully healthy. So with that, I'm going to say it all depends on how Randall performs next to Brunson in the postseason because we know Brunson's going to be here. For Randall, then it's can he perform and can he take the Knicks to another level in the sense of all right, now we have two guys on this team that we can rely on offensively, playmaking wise. And then if we just have to retool around them and take it to another level, then we'll be set. It's just kind of like what we see with like Boston. You remember all the talks where it's like, oh, can you really have Brown and Tatum on the same team? It feels like you got to have to split them up and then go figure out who you want to build around. But all they did is that they figured out, hey, we got two guys here. Let's just go get KP. Let's go get Drew. Let's go figure
Yeah.
out other ways, other ancillary pieces to make them better.
It,
And that's just kind of like what's look even Dallas right now,
That's
right?
all
Dallas is
that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, it didn't look super great last year. I mean, they showed flashes, but then they're like, let's build around this in the right way.
yeah, look at the beginning of this season, right? Mavs
Yeah.
weren't even that great. And then trade deadline, you get Gafford, you get PJ Washington on that team, and then you draft Derek Lively and things start to look a little different.
Hmm.
So, that's the thing with the Knicks is that you have to see that Randall can at least perform. And then if you have two guys like that, then I would think the Knicks could say, all right, let's figure out the right players to fit around them. And honestly, if you look, this is where you could be an optimistic Knicks fan saying, well, if we got Dante who overachieved, we got Josh Hart who overachieved, all we really need is Randall to come through and then we could figure out everything else.
Okay, so the Knicks fans are in a frenzy over this hypothetical question. So I need to hear your answer. Would you trade Julius Randle for Mikal Bridges straight up?
Absolutely not.
Like my thing is, I think, Julius Randle is the better basketball player. He can make something out of nothing at a way higher level than Mikal Bridges, in my opinion. The thing is, though, I think Mikal Bridges in the playoffs fits the Knicks' identity better.
I I think from what you're saying, like right now, I could see that. But I think what you said is more important, where it's like a guy who could create and stuff of that nature, where, that's something that we saw was a problem from time to time against Philly, against Indiana, where, okay, Brunson's not having it. Who are we going to go to now?
Mm,
And as much as like I love Dante, I love Josh Hart, both those guys are not consistent scorers as Julius can be. Once again, this is where it just comes back to Julius having to show that he could do it in the postseason. But I totally understand where you say hey, Bridges, he fits like that identity. He comes from that Villanova cloth. I get it. We all hear the jokes about you get all the Infinity Stones, and then you got that gauntlet for the Knicks fandom where it's like you got everybody, and now you can just move. And maybe you go get Eric Pascal for all I know, and just maybe that's the next thing you do, right? But
Sadiq Bey.
hey, Sadiq Bey, there you go.
Yeah,
Another
he
one.
actually be good for the Knicks. I think I like Sadiq Bey. Yeah,
Sadiq Bey is another good player, but
yeah,
I look, I still think it comes down to you just got to see Randall. Like I like Bridges. I think he's a solid player. He's miscasted in Brooklyn as being the number one guy. I think that's not everyone's built to be the number one guy, but I think he could be a solid three. I think on some nights you could even say, oh, look, I think he could be something where you say it's either like a KP or even a Derek White, right? When you look at Boston, where at some nights they look like they could be the two because they're feeling it. Other nights you could say, they're the four because you don't really need them that night, and you got somebody else. You got two other guys you can really rely on. I like Bridges though. I wouldn't do that a trade straight up for Bridges and Randall. And look, I've been one of Randall's biggest critics,
really.
but the way he played this last season, it's given me some optimism to say I would like to see this and see what he could do fully healthy in the postseason.
There's a lot of conversation around Hartenstein's free agency, Al. Um, you know the intricacies of the salaries, how much money the Knicks have, more than I do. So, like Hartenstein, from a basketball perspective, like I really like Hartenstein's game. Since summer league, I think this was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm like, yeah, this guy. I think he was playing with the Rockets, like just a really good basketball player, strong, athletic, big, high IQ. And, I mean, he showed all of that obviously with the Knicks. He was a connective piece, great rebounder, great touch with the floaters. Felt like he was going like 100% on floaters some nights. Um, you know, 100 million is a lot of money, but I think that's what a starting center in the NBA goes for these days. Is it in the best interest for the Knicks to pay that kind of money? Can they pay that kind of money? What does that mean for the team in general?
It's so tough, man, because you got to look at also Mitchell Robinson on this team too, where you got 64 million sunk there. I look at the center position as kind of like the running back of the NBA, man, where you know at one point you want to have that just center, that player that could just body people and you could just throw them the ball in the paint and it's just going to be easy buckets. And now you see that that's not really sustainable anymore, especially with how it's changed, whether that be like the NFL where you don't even do a lot of running anymore, right? It's a lot more passing. And for the center position in the NBA, they're kind of like this utility, just rim runner, depending on who you're looking at. Obviously, Jokic and Beat are just we're talking
Yeah.
about a class of their own. But when I
Don't you
look,
feel like trends could go full circle and maybe you could be getting ahead of it?
sure, they could go full circle. I don't think we're there yet just because of the overall reliance of the pace and space that we're seeing
Right,
right
right.
now.
Yeah.
So this is where Hartenstein makes his bread and butter, though, is that he could work the high post. He's a good facilitator. He's got a floater. He has more of an offensive game than Mitchell Robinson. Not the same defensive versatility that Mitch offers. Not the same rebounding presence that Mitch can give you on a night to night basis. But I think his well roundedness definitely fits for what that starting five on the Knicks need. Especially once again, it goes back to January, right? And it's crazy how it's such a small sample size just can really give you a different perspective on how this team could look moving forward. But the fact that you see Hartenstein is able to facilitate with Bronson, he's able to work with OG cutting Hart or Dante cutting back door, safety with OG as well. It makes the offense more fluid just because he helps space the floor even more. And then offensively, a little bit more creative, like I said. So now you have to truly honor all five positions. Unlike when Robinson's out there, it's going to be a dunk and nothing else. For the most part. So it's in the Knicks' best interest to keep him because he makes that starting five look much better. A
Right.
100 million is tough though, because now you're talking about what Brunson is essentially making right now, and I don't think he's like. It's weird because I know the salary cap always rate is increasing, but the fact that with the way that the league is structured, where teams can be hard cap, you can't move draft picks, the 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 rigidness of flexibility in the league with the new contracts, it's just tough. I don't know if the Knicks should necessarily pay 100 million just for Hartenstein. And I would say even for Hartenstein, I don't even know like if you're trying to win, if they're paying you 100 million, you got to question like what's the rest of the team look like, right? Because are you going to now be positioned in a role that one you're not really suited for and be asked to do more than you're capable of? And does that take the team back even more and make it even tougher to build around? Because we go look at Gobert's contract, right? And they haven't had to pay Ant-Man yet. But when that time comes, you're going to be starting to look like, well, you got Cat on the books, you got Gobert on the books. And unless you think that trio could take it to the promised land, somebody's got to get moved at some point. So I think for the Knicks, it's in their best interest not to give a lot of bloated contracts on this roster.
Speaking of the Knicks, just to put a bow on it, what would be your like letter grade for the season?
Say B plus.
Hmm. So basically, like an A would have been a champ. Like real, what? Like Eastern Conference Finals would have been an A.
I think I wouldn't for this season. It's so tough. I guess no. I'd probably say like it's so tough when it comes to grading, man. Because I to think about like what an A looks like.
It looked. I mean, I think the Knicks fans is the championship, right?
Yeah, I think an A has to be championship, right? Like that's an A season. Like that's great. I think
I
saying
guess
you
it
get an
depends on what
A.
you are because I do think like the Pacers are close to A. Like I think they overachieved getting
I
that
th-
far.
it's just tough for grading, man, because I feel like championships are get A's. So like depending on how you feel about like A pluses and A's,
Well,
like
it
depending on
also depends on the team's expectations. Like what if the Wizards made the playoffs this year? Like that's almost like an A for them, right?
yeah, I would agree. I would agree that would be an A for them, but in the whole grand scheme of things, like I guess yes, in that regards, yes. But I think for the Knicks, there were bigger. There was more of an aspiration with what this team looked like in January, what they were able to do without all the players being fully healthy in the postseason. So I'm gonna go with B plus because I'm also gonna say that an A would be them making it farther with a healthy roster. We didn't get to see that.
So Ty Lue signs a 5-year extension worth nearly 70 million. I think we all saw this was going to happen, Alex. And I think the big thing for me is like that means he's not going to the Lakers, and we got to see who's going to be there. There's a lot of JJ Redick talk. We talked about this before with JJ. What are your thoughts on Ty Lue signing this huge deal and then that open vacant roster, not roster spot, coaching spot for the Lakers?
Oh, I think when you look at Ty Lue, man, there's only so few coaches that are like Ty Lue, Eric Spoelstra, who
Right.
really elevate the team to such a level where it doesn't even matter what the roster looks like. I mean, we've seen Ty Lue do that in the past. We've seen Eric Spoelstra do it. So I think he's more than worth the money just because he gets the most out of his players. You just hear the respect all the players give him throughout the league. I mean, Kerr is another coach that would go up there and just, schematically being able to connect with players and holding, like creating good expectations and holding them accountable. That's all important stuff for being a head coach. So I think it's well deserved. With regards to the Lakers, this it's just funny, man. I feel like they're always it doesn't even matter. Does it really even matter at this point? Because I know that's what LeBron James wants, but even if you got Ty Lue and it didn't go in the direction that it should for a LeBron James led team, is that the position you want to be put in? Like now you're like
100%.
Darvin Ham was looked at as like a coach as say,
Ty Lue. Ty Lue's best off with the Clippers. I told you guys that. I think we talked about this
yeah.
on the on the NBA report like 2-3 weeks ago. Like first of all, him and Balmer have a relationship. It's almost like his team, his situation. I mean, with the Lakers, it's like that's like a job that there's a good chance you're going to get fired going into it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Look, and that's why I think like if you go to be on a LeBron team, like you're instantly on the hot seat because it's championship or bust because that's the conversation with LeBron James every single season. Well, 2 years ago when they made to the Western Conference Finals and got swept by the Nuggets, it's oh man, well, thank God for Darvin Ham because he made it this far because otherwise he would have been fired. Um, but we can even go back to Darvin Ham when he was with the Bucks and he was just praised as like this good coach. Like everyone wants him. He was just this hot commodity. And now look at him. Now all the reports is he's not good enough, and he's not this, he's not that. And I just feel like Ty Lue would have been put in that situation with LeBron. And what I feel like he had this. I feel like we've had these conversations too when he was on the Cavs with LeBron. So why
Right.
even go back to that same situation? But for the Lakers, look, Frank Vogel won a championship out there with them, right? And he got
Hmm.
canned. So it's
Yeah.
I don't think that's an easy job. I think if you're going to be, you have to be comfortable with LeBron calling all the shots and knowing that you're probably going to have a short tenure if you don't get to where you need to be in that time period, and take a year off and then go look for another job. And look, Ty Lue already did. He was already a head coach. He was on Doc Rivers' coaching staff, and then got back to a head coaching position. I think this is the right move for him to even stay there. I mean, we can even go back to Eric Spoelstra on the Miami Heat, right? LeBron wanted him out of there. Remember those rumblings? And
Hmm.
Pat Riley said no. And look, we got Eric Spoelstra, who is 8 year contract worth 120 million. So, and he's a good coach. So Ty Lue's fine just where he is. What the Lakers do, I don't know, man. There's, you know, they're just. I feel like they should just. All they need is really just a cardboard cutout of a coach on the sideline, and just let LeBron do whatever he wants to do. That's how I feel.
I was actually talking to a Lakers fan out in the Bahamas. He just thinks that the Lakers would be better off starting fresh without LeBron. I don't really agree with that. I mean, first of all,
Mm.
from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to recoup that money that you pay LeBron just from the attention and the butts in the seats and all the energy he brings to the Lakers, even if you feel like it might not be best in a basketball situation. I do think like he's still really, really good.
Yeah, like LeBron is still one of the top players in the league.
Yeah.
Um,
They just ran into
the issue
Denver too early. That's what
that
really
that
happened.
that's one. I think the other thing too is that we got to keep it real, Andrew. Is that with a LeBron James led team, there's a lot of gutting of the roster, and it just let's go back to what happened to Cleveland, right? After they won the chip, you get you bring Derrick Rose in, you bring Deron Williams in, you bring all these guys in that just didn't make sense. It was like, what are we doing here? This is not a roster equipped to compete for a title with LeBron James. We could talk about after the Lakers won, you get rid of Cook, you get rid of Kyle Kuzma, you get rid of KCP, all guys who are very like, and not necessarily Cook, but let's talk about Kyle Kuzma and KCP, guys who are critical to winning that championship for the Lakers. And that then you just bring in you quickly reshape the roster. I also look at this as like a LeBron issue too, where he always is like asking for other guys to come through, and it's like, don't be the GM, don't be the coach. Let those other guys who are paid to do that, because
Yeah.
what he needs is shooters around him. And we saw for this season, not enough shooters, and he's not getting the open space that he needs on the court to be that LeBron that we're so accustomed to seeing.
From your perspective, from what I'm gathering, it feels like you think LeBron feels like he needs control over everything. It's like a
For
control thing.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You don't think so?
I do. I do. But you're with me that they shouldn't move off of LeBron, right?
I mean, no, but like, I don't even. What does a trade for LeBron even move? Like, are you saying go through free agency because he could be a free agent?
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, they could if they mutually wanted to, part ways, they could easily, and LeBron could go somewhere else, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they could easily do that. I mean, if LeBron wanted to be a nice
Yeah, I
guy, he
think
could say,
LeBron
"Hey,
wants to be in LA. Like, yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
come on, man. This is LeBron's at that point where it's like, what stuff outside of basketball that can help make me more money? Whether it be doing movies, shows, all that type of stuff. Like, there's a good reason why he wanted to be out in LA too. Like, as much as he wanted to be part of the Lakers for basketball reasons, there's a business side to it too. I think we could all agree on that.
yeah, yeah. This is so random, Alex, but you know what I thought of when you said Kuzma? I thought, Kuzma actually did the reverse for Zingis, Aaron Gore, and Andrew Wiggins. Like he, he was like on a championship team, and then he went the other way.
Yo, really did. it was, and that's like the crazy part of it too, because Kuzma was so critical for that
Yeah.
team. I mean, he played what,
And then he didn't
power
want to
forward,
go. He
small
didn't want to go
forward.
to Dallas this year, I think, right? He wanted to stay with the Wiz.
I think yeah, it was like the Wizards, and but the other team was Houston. That was the other team that I think he was considering.
Mm,
I forget the whole deal with Houston, but there were some rumblings over there where Kyle Kuzma was, there was close to it, but I think the money didn't line up for Houston, so that's why he stayed in DC. So, and
yeah.
now look what you got. Now I was just putting up empty stats.
Kuzma's in DC, but you, my friend, are in Beantown.
Mm.
From a content perspective, me and Coach Nick talk about this often. Like the Celtics are kind of boring, bro. It's like if
Go on.
you
I want to hear this. I
no
want to
no
hear how all
if
the
you
Celtics fans
if
come
you
come after you right now.
yeah they've been in the YouTube comments. They've been, I mean, everywhere, bro. IG comments. But if you look at all the talking points about this upcoming finals, it's all revolving around the Mavs because they're so much more fun. And when you try and talk about the Celtics, it's like you change topics real quick. Like, what's so boring about this team, even though they were like so dominant during the regular season?
I think at this point, it's they were. Remember how hyped they were when they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals for Tatum's rookie season after Kyrie gets injured, and it's them and the Cavs. You have scary Terry hours, right? You have Jalen Brown showing up. You have all these young guys showing up, and there was a lot of chatter that around that team, around the Celtics, and very interesting because they're young. Look at this. This is a new team. Two dynamic wings. This is the up and coming thing. We got to talk about this team left and right. I feel like they've just reached the mountaintop so quickly in the sense of this is an Eastern Conference team, should be year in and year out based on expectations, and yet they've underachieved for what all that hype has been. So now we're at a point where, all right, this team is the best. It's look, we've seen this team make it to Eastern Conference Finals, either lose to the Heat, they've either won and gone and faced the Warriors and lost to the Warriors, but they've always been there, right? They've always been knocking on that door of saying we could be a championship title team, but yet they've always fallen short. And so at this point, they just got to do it, man. And now that you have assembled the best starting five possible for this team, KP, Derek White, and Drew Holiday to go around Brown and Tatum, it's like, all right, let's just sim to the finals and let's see that you could do it. And I also think that this year, like, we could talk about all the injuries the Pacers got lucky with, but can we talk about how the Celtics have also had an easy walk to the finals as well,
Oh
where,
yeah, yeah. I've been talking
you
about
know,
that. I've been talking
yeah,
about that.
I know you've been talking about it. And look, I think Celtics fans have to keep that in perspective where, look, Cavs didn't have Donovan Mitchell. You didn't have Karis LeVert and all these other guys in the final, game six? Was it
Mhm.
game six, again, game five or game six, whatever it may be. Um, you talk about them going through who they faced in the first round that I'm blanking out on.
I
It's
mean, they
just
beat the Cavs. They beat Miami.
yes, Miami without Jimmy Butler. Thank you. They beat
Yeah,
Miami without Jimmy Butler. There's just been so much in the NBA just going on that it's like, what's
that seems
happening?
like
No
years
Jimmy
ago.
Butler.
That seems like years ago.
It does
Yeah.
feel like years ago. And look, this finals is not starting until June 6th. So we got some good chunk of time just waiting and what's going to happen. So you beat the Heat without Jimmy Butler. You beat the Cavs where they didn't have Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen. Now you face a Pacers team that, even though it's fun and entertaining, you know, not the best defense, still a dominant team. They sweep them. Now I just want to see, can they do it? We knew that they weren't going to be challenged until they got to the NBA Finals, but can they do it now? They got the best starting five. Can they actually put a bow on this season and say, you know what, we did it? But I think it's boring just because how many years do we have to say this team's really good, man? This team's really good. This team's really good. This is a championship contending team, and then they fall short. Why do you think they're boring?
I just don't think they're like two superstars are that interesting.
I mean, they don't bring a lot of flair either. That is correct.
I mean, like, look at Kyrie and Luke. I mean, that's fun.
They are
I
fun.
mean, that is like that is the most skillful. I don't care what you say, championship or not. That is the most skillful backcourt I've ever seen, even if they don't win a championship. Like you
Oh,
could
for
start
sure.
like I mean, best offensive. I mean, that makes, I could see some debates like best backcourt ever. Like you could see some debates, but just in terms of skill, like the most skillful backcourt. They're just super fun. And I mean, they're both, I think they're both like great personalities, It's like, yeah, I don't know. Celtics is just boring. And honestly, like, I never was the biggest Jason Tatum guy, even though I realize he's a great player. I'm kind of like higher on Jaylen Brown than most probably, and like a little bit lower on Tatum.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I agree on the personas. Like that makes it interesting. That I'm just gonna lean with the fact that this team is just are they just gonna be able to do it? And if they don't do it this year, man, then it's just it.
Well,
What else can we talk about?
yeah, in some ways, they're almost like a victim of their own success. I mean, to take it
Exactly.
from the other perspective, because they keep making it so far every year, but they didn't get it done yet. But then you look at a lot of the, great players of the past, and this will say a lot about Luka if he could win it. Like they don't win it till 27, 28. Like I don't know the exact ages of Jordan and LeBron, but it was around there, right? So, they're around that age now. This is the time they should be getting it done. But then that starts another conversation. Like, what if Luka gets one at 25? Like that's pretty crazy.
I mean, that was the conversation with Ant, right? Like if Ant made it to the NBA Finals, like, well, yo, he's 22. What's going
Yeah.
on
And we
here?
saw like he just wasn't ready,
No,
you
I
know?
like for Ant, like very young. It's we know that the postseason it's a marathon, so it's really just being equipped for that long run. But you see it, man, with the way Luca and Kyrie are playing. I don't know, man. And living out here, it's funny hearing Celtics fans like, "Oh, we got this." I'm like, you are all very confident for to go against a backcourt that is two guards that could score in two totally different ways. Kyrie could be very quick, very agile. Luca could just be a bully, move at his own pace and still get buckets. Like that's not easy to cover for 48 minutes. And then the role players have just amped up their defense and are just knocking down timely shots.
Yeah, so I mean, let's finish with this. Like I tweeted last night that I feel like the Celtics are the better basketball team, but the Dallas Mavericks are more dangerous. And then I thought about my own tweet. Do I really believe that Boston is the better basketball team at this point? I mean, over the course of the season with a larger sample size, they have been the better team, but at this point, I'm not really sure.
I think when we watch this finals, it's going to come down to depth. Whose depth do you like more?
Dallas easily.
Hmm.
Easily. I mean, the thing is with Porzingis, we don't know. With Pritchard, he's going to get targeted like crazy by Kyrie and especially Luca. And they don't have much depth outside of that anyway. Like Tillman, they give minutes sometimes. I know Sam Hauser comes on the bench. I mean, he's solid, but yeah, I don't really like the depth with the Celtics.
Do you think Do you think Boston start? I guess so. You don't. I know you like Dallas. You like Dallas's bench more,
Yeah.
but do you think even with the depth, it's still enough to go against the Celtics starting five?
Yeah. I mean, just so you're saying like the top five versus their top, like the two top fives, like the main guys.
I'm just saying, is the Boston's top five enough to beat, let's say, Dallas's 8 or 9?
Yeah, I mean, how about the five? Like just the way they're playing offense, even the two fives,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start getting into the depth. I mean, Tim Hardaway can't even get minutes at this point.
He's not, which is hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. I like Timmy. I like his game, but they're giving those minutes to Jaden Hardy. I also believe there's going to be a Jaden Hardy game at some point. That guy is
we
super
saw we
skillful.
saw that this last round
Yeah, yeah.
against the
We're
Timberwolves.
gonna see another one. I mean, because
Yeah.
that's the kind of guy that you're not really game planning for all the way, especially when you have to put so much bandwidth into guarding Kyrie and Luca and thinking about Kyrie and Luca.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be a good series, man. I'm looking
It's
forward to it.
what's your prediction? I got Mavs in 6 before we get out of here. What do you got?
Mavs in 7.
Wow. Okay. So wow, we both got the Mavs.
Yeah, I think Mavs at 7. I
Is
think
is is that your inner Knicks fan, like just wanting the Celtics to lose?
as a Knicks fan, I don't like either team.
But come on, man. It'll be fun to see the Celtics lose, even more than Dallas lose.
I think to me, it's just, at this point, it's just from a basketball perspective, I think having to guard Kyrie and Luka for 7 games, 6 or 7 games, whatever it may be, that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Because even if it's, let's say, Tatum and Brown, as good as defenders they are, to do that for 48 minutes against, look, Luka, one of the top 5. I see the comments on the last one. Oh, not top 3. Relax, guys. Top 5 is still great last time I checked.
It could be top 1 after all this, right?
He could be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, he could easily be top 1 after this, although I still think it's hard to say over Jokic just from like a skills perspective.
It's fair. It's fair. I mean, Jokic is really good, man.
Yeah, but I would say like easily top 2, easily second if he wins his chip.
Yeah.
But to say to have to guard, all right. So now you're talking about a guy who's top 3. Let's go with top 3 just to cater to the listeners. So top 3. Then when Kyrie is on, he's a top 5, top 10, top 15 guy easily.
Yeah.
And so when I look at the other side where you have Tatum, who's considered a top 10 dude, Brown could be top 15, probably more likely top 20, right? Like, I'm sorry, but if you got a 2 and then a top 10 guy, top 15 going against top 10 and a top 20 guy, I'm going to go with the team with the top 5 and top 15. Like, I just skill-wise, those guys are tough to just guard against. And if it's not going to be Tatum and Brown, like I don't see Derek White stopping Kyrie Irving. I don't see Drew Holiday stopping Kyrie. Like Kyrie is one of the most shiftiest players there is. And then like to have to battle Luka, who could score at all 3 levels and even go back to the basket at times, like that's no easy feat. That's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And the top 75 is going to look really crazy that Kyrie didn't make it if he like runs through the finals and like just cooks the Celtics and wins another championship. I mean, he's like top, what he might probably be like top 25 at that point, right? Top East. I think so. Yeah. If he gets 2 championships.
For sure.
Yeah. Al, great stuff. You know, you're always welcome back on the show. Where can we find you? Social media, everywhere else?
Yo, Andrew, always appreciate talking hoops with you, my man. You can find me over at Knicks Fan TV. You can go to youtube.com/Knicks Fan TV. You can also go to where this beautiful show is, go to NBA Report as well, part of under that same umbrella where you can find more of Andrew's phenomenal work.
Thank you.
So you can go find me there as well. And hey, you can follow me on all social at Tratacaster101. You can just check the bottom here and you can see that's where you can find me on all social media.
Alex, great stuff. You know you're always welcome back on the show, and talk soon.
Absolutely, bro. Appreciate you.
Anytime.